60 seconds to comply.
I think you'd better do what he says, Mr. Kenny.
You have 60 seconds to comply. This is minute 66. Pod man.
Pod machine,
All
pod. Execute order 66.
Oh shit, I'm glad you remembered that. Wipe them out. All of them. Oh, Palpatine was the best thing of those things.
He uses his whole face to talk. He actually developed wrinkles just so he could express with more face.
Oh, fuck. That's gold. Fucking gold. Oh, anyway.
This minute begins with Boudica requesting his fucking phone call and ends with an epic elevator shot.
Yeah, it's funny because there's not much going on in this minute, but it's literally all building up to this is the end of Act 2.
Yes, we're getting right into the middle. This is essentially the center. I don't think it's a center point in terms of runtime, but in terms of story structure, definitely is.
In story structure, that's what I say. It's the end of Act 2, so it's the typically in dramatic structure, the end of Act 2 is where the hero has reached his highest peak and then suffers the major fall, so he can build himself back up. It's the hero picking themselves up again, which is essentially an Act 3. There's people have different ways to define this, but I'm just using the classic 3-act structure here because it fits so well. So really are literally the second third of the movie, and it is timelines.
I mean, it's an 80s movie, so it's exactly 90 minutes long or somewhere around there. Yeah. And it has exactly 3 acts, and I kind of love that. Yeah. I think that might be subconsciously a major part of the appeal of 80s films, that it has this beautiful little predictable structure.
The funny thing is that when it comes to narrative structure, we do like that kind of thing, though. Like, or going all the way back to the Odyssey and all that type of stuff. You know, that's why they always said there's only like 5 plots or there's 5 stories, something similar to that. The number may vary, but it really is that thing where at the end of the day, especially it's great for movies because audiences don't have to then, I don't think too hard about, like, they're not confronted with just like the first thing that went to mind is like a David Lynchian's RoboCop, where you're just like going, what the fuck is happening here?
Yeah,
it's very simple.
That's why I'm fascinated by Lynch. Is it totally does away with story structure. It's about the journey, not the destination. It is about just ideas and dreams, and isn't this interesting to look at? And there's a reason why we generally don't see that in stories.
Well, for the most part, having a very basic plot structure, which is, I think, Hollywood executives will love all that type of stuff anyway because it's safe.
Yeah.
You know, this is already a weird movie in and of itself. It's a hard sell because people just go, RoboCop. But so you got the layering of like the satire, the critique, the seriousness of it. Like even the music of this part of the movie is not particularly like hardcore heavy, you know, like it's RoboCop gonna kick some ass music.
The music's pretty heroic, but then it's also a little dreamy or nostalgic. It's kind of the music that they used in the part where he visits his former home. Yes. Which I found a weird choice, and I don't know why they decided to do that.
Yeah, I have no idea either. Paul talks about it in the next minute, particularly in the commentary, so I'll probably bring it up a bit more about it then. But I think it's one of those things where RoboCop is a tragic hero, like, flat out. I mean, we do get his moments of badass, and even in this next scene, this is like, we've built this guy up. We've seen how much of a badass he is. So when he gets taken down, that makes it even more shocking. So that's part of that journey with the hero, is that almost reach that point where they think they're unbeatable, and that's when they kind of gets the ass kicking that they rightly deserve.
We've talked about this a little bit, but I am fascinated by the idea of stakes in fiction, and that it seems to work on us every single time. It's this trick that we just keep falling for, where it's fiction. Anything can happen, anything is possible, and yet when you establish stakes, it fools us every time into thinking, oh wow, RoboCop is so powerful, and now he's not. Like, well, it's not real, so anything could have happened. But it doesn't matter, because if you make it feel real, that's the prestige there. That's the trick.
It's the willing suspension of disbelief. Like, at the end of the day, we all know RoboCop's gonna survive. He's gonna beat the bad guy. Blah 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 blah. But yeah, part of that journey is, and it's getting there, and relatability and stakes are great tools to do that. If we hadn't established the Murphy connection by now, and we hadn't really put ourselves in this guy's shoes, this moment wouldn't make much. Wouldn't really give him much of a damn. Remake should take notes.
Yes, getting back to the film being a chiasmus, I believe is how it's pronounced. It's a weird word, but the fact that the film is symmetrical. Chiasmus. So, now we're in the middle. That means that one act follows another where it mirrors. So, according to Data Reviewer, the symmetry here is that RoboCop successfully arrested Bodica and then immediately fails in his attempt to arrest Jones. So, that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I never thought about it like that. That's true.
And I don't know if the chiasmus was deliberate. We will never know. I mean, unless someone can actually ask Verhoeven, one of the writers.
Yeah, unless he brings it up in the commentary, I can't tell you about Word of God. But given how kind of pieced together some of this movie is, like in regards to change to the script and stuff like that, I don't think it was like intentional. But I think the production crew knew, like Neumeier, Miner, Verhoeven. I think they're good enough artists in their own sense to go to maybe unintentionally get and do that. So, like it's good symmetry because it's good storytelling. So I should say it's good storytelling because it's good. Yeah. That thing. It's good because it's good.
And it could be one of those things that happened in the edit, so it wasn't necessarily they wrote for that. It's just it kind of came out in that final part of the process. I can't talk. That would be an interesting project though, if you're writing to try and do it deliberately. That sounds like a challenge.
Well, it depends on your writing style, I guess, as well, because sometimes you get story, or people write stories where they know what the ending is, and then they just have to work towards it. Listening to a podcast with some authors, and they're talking about writing mysteries. The one author had said he wrote like 2/3 of the murder mystery book, and he didn't know who the killer was. And one of his friends read it and said, "Oh yeah, I got it within the first 2 chapters," and he just went, "Well, you're better than me, because I didn't have a fucking clue."
That's happened many times where someone else looks at what you've written, or you look at some other movie and you go, well, it's so clear that they were supposed to do this and they didn't do it. How did they not see that?
Well, I think that's kind of one of the critiques we really bring up in the remake, is it's like, yeah, it's an unfair advantage of comparing it to a great film, but it's also one of those things where you just go, something's missing, and if you just did this little tweak, you really could have done something with this, and that's why ultimately it becomes really disappointing.
Yeah. So we've got the symbolism of Dick Jones in his office. There's a globe in the foreground with the United States facing the camera. It is not so subtle.
It's a little bit on the nose. I do like that globe prop though. I like the black and white inverted color.
Yeah, I've got one thing like that. It's copper and black, and it does look pretty cool. Nice. There's something about having a globe. I really wanted one because it really classes the joint up.
It makes me feel worldly.
Yes. I was going to say, in this image as well, it's very deliberately constructed, more so than any other moment in the film, at least that I've noticed. It almost has this Kubrick aspect to it. But the light, he's got a desk lamp directly on him, and it makes me wonder, is this what we could consider diegetic light? I have this fascination with diegesis as a concept, I guess.
Let me just reopen the video. They bring up in the commentary next minute that this is the shot in the studio. So, yeah, everything is constructed. But I'm looking at the reflections on the globe, and they're really interesting because you've got a whole lot of different arrangement of lights. Because you've got like your fluoro lights, but then you've got these other double lights next to it, which look a bit more like a studio light. Sorry, I just realised the concept of non-diegetic light. Yeah, it technically is true if you somehow introduce light that couldn't possibly exist. But okay, green screen's a perfect example of that because there's like no light sources in a building. But like most sets will usually have lights, but then like say a window might have a fill light just to brighten it up and stuff like that. So yeah, there usually is non-diegetic light, but it's unnoticeable. So that's why you don't particularly think about it.
Yeah, because I've always wanted to find what a diegetic or non-diegetic example of costuming would be, and the only thing I have ever been able to come close to is perhaps the white hat, black hat thing that you see in westerns. Very common symbolism.
Well, that's still diegetic because it's
wait, hang on.
Of
So the
world.
other Westworld. So in Westworld, the new one, can't remember the guy's name, but he is entering Westworld for the first time, and they present him with a costume, and they say, "Would you like the black hat or the white hat?" And it's this sort of referential thing, and I kind of felt it is as close as you could get to a diegetic or non-diegetic, I should say, example of costuming. But that's about as close as you could possibly get.
No, I have to disagree with you on that because diegetic is about stuff that's within the world. It's not, and non-diegetic is stuff outside the world. That's why music is, for the most part, non-diegetic in a movie. Like, we literally got non-diegetic movies.
That's what I'm saying. I think it's impossible to have non-diegetic costuming, and that's probably as good as an example as I could ever think of. But yeah,
there's only one way you can have non-diegetic costuming: goofs. If you've got a guy in the background who's clearly, like the was it in Mandalorian?
And the guy in the t-shirt, yeah.
Yeah, guy in the t-shirt. Those are the only ways you can get to non-diegetic costuming, because that's just people that are not supposed to be in there, or people that, so they're wearing a costume that's not part of that world. Like if that was a blooper in, I don't know, The Big Lebowski, that's part of the diegetic world, realistically speaking, but t-shirt and sneakers probably not really part of the Mandalorian universe.
But yeah, it fascinates me that music and speech as well have this ability that other forms of art within cinema could never do. Lighting maybe, as I'm making the argument here, but I think for everything else, maybe not.
Well, as I said, like in this case, I'm looking at the Dick Jones picture. We see reflections on the ball from the thing. They're plausible for a thing, but we do have the light's deliberately placed in front of his face. Let's just be brutally honest. There, it's so deliberately, because those kind of desk lamps aren't that great.
Yeah.
So it has to get that close to line them up. So, but I think it works because it's he's in his office. It's a lamp that would exist. It's not so bad. The only thing is, you're not really paying much attention to that crystal ball that much. Crystal ball, that globe. So I'm looking at the studio light. I'm looking at the lights in that thing, and so that's when part of me is like, I don't think that light arrangement would really work. But it doesn't matter because you're not paying attention. If you're paying attention to the ball and not Ronnie Cox, there's probably something wrong with you, or you've watched this movie minute by minute.
Yes, and we've surprisingly gotten a lot of discussion out of just this one frame. Technically. But that's what I love about filmmaking, is the amount of control that a person can have, and the whole every frame of painting concept, it really intrigues me.
Well, the one thing I was actually going to bring up is I'm trying to remember which guest we had on at the time, when the first time we see the tracker in the OCP headquarters, and it's just a brief flash and you missed it, and you just got that really crappy LED on a sticker and a box kind of thing.
Wait, was that
and
Nile?
this one they've actually done.
Could have been.
I think it could have been Nile, yeah. And it was just now we've got actually an overlay, which is how it would probably work. And it's funny because there's a cutaway scene a little bit later where you see him with the original prop putting it away. So again,
It's such
continuity.
a dated thing. It's one of those bits
But I
of
like
technology.
this one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was the other thing?
I can't help but like it.
Yeah, it like big TV screens. That was one of those things in a lot of 80s and 90s TV shows. Well, set in the future, but everyone still has gigantic CRT monitors, which I guess is just a practicality thing. If you want to project anything on it, well, you can't really do it digitally.
Yeah, it was also a sign of like opulence or wealth, like the family's got the big TV, because
The only film that gets this right is Total Recall, where in Arnold's house at the beginning, all the screens built into the walls, they're flat, they are integrated into the space, and that's spot on. Whereas most other shows, they got these humongous chunky blocks. Okay.
Well, I think the whole idea with Total Recall is it's supposed to be future tech, they go to Mars, so it's like it's so far ahead in the future that they can just go hog wild.
That's what I love about retrofuturism, though, is this is how far this technology could potentially go if it was still stuck in whatever era. The Jetsons future, that's what would happen if the 60s just never ended and some of the limitations selectively remained. Like misogyny.
That's funny. So I'm looking at this shot of the... and this is the funny thing that seems off to me now, because it's just doing deep analyzing of the scene. And I'm looking at Dick Jones's watch, and if this was if this movie had a bit more of a budget, or probably a bit more modern, he'd be wearing something like a fucking Rolex.
I was looking at it too.
A leather banded gold watch.
It's this cheap ass looking thing, but maybe we can write it into the story. It was his father's watch, and he wears it.
Or maybe it was the watch. Maybe it was the watch that the old man first gave him.
Could be. Or it's a trophy after he killed Morton. It's Morton's watch.
Christopher Walken comes in and says, "I had this hunk of metal up my ass."
Boddicker did.
Boddicker comes in, walking awkwardly. Oh, God. That's not for a few more minutes.
Yeah. Yep. So, we have RoboCop pulling into the OCP parking garage, and we are greeted by not one, but two Corvettes, I believe, possibly C4s. And boy, do I miss pop up and down headlights.
Oh, I love the aesthetic of pop-up headlights. I just know they always break.
I know the aerodynamics and stuff aren't great and whatever, but I don't give a shit. I want a Trans Am. I want the pop-up and down headlights.
I honestly don't care that much of a shit about it.
Well, I mean, you drive a Camry, so obviously you don't give a shit. So.
Yeah, but I still would like I still like a Trans Am. I still like that.
Everyone does.
But
But I mean, it makes sense that this is the OCP building. So who's pulling out? It's a bunch of dudes in expensive sports cars. It's the 80s.
Yeah, technically these would be vintage, because this is supposed to be set in the 2040s.
Oh, true. Yeah. It's never explicitly said, so I always read RoboCop as being an alternate timeline rather than being the future.
No, it is supposed to be future, but the problem is, of course, that it's never explicitly said, so it's hard to... But even the Detroit skyline, the cityscape is all different. Oh, which I'll actually bring up now. Oh my god, we get two of the most stunning matte paintings.
Yes, I was going to talk about it, yeah.
In close and focus in this minute. The OCP building and the Detroit cityscape.
And I'm curious about how they incorporate matte elements with the live action elements, especially the elevator we see at the end of this minute, I think. Yes, we do.
They literally just put a painter glass in front of the camera and paint away.
Oh my god. This is a really difficult shot, though, because for those listening, it's a weird perspective, because you're looking down as Murphy takes the elevator up, and you see him turn around, and yeah. So are they painting frame by frame? Are they cutting it out and putting one footage over the other? Right.
So, if we go to the elevator scene, the only moving point is the elevator itself.
Are there some people walking up the stairs down below as well?
I'm not entirely sure this is 100% a matte painting. I don't. But we just use this as an example. So, say the top left-hand side of the frame where there's all that stuff going on, but there's no people moving. Although
Right.
you can do that type of stuff.
So we could say the elevator and the stairwell is probably real, and then they've just built out on top of that, right?
Yeah. They literally would just get a pane of glass in front of the camera, and the artist will paint in the extra detail.
That's wild.
It's an old cinematic trick. It's been going on for decades, and
That's the thing. The old-fashioned way is often harder to comprehend because when you do anything digitally, you just go, "Well, I get computers. I get
they
that
just put it in the computer and clickety click. Yeah.
things happen." Yeah, I know it's difficult, but there's sort of there's a system, I suppose, and I can fathom.
Yeah.
Okay, if I wanted to make something digitally, these are the steps you would take. But okay, you want to combine a painting with live-action footage on film, physical film that you touch with your hands. And you shouldn't touch it with your hands, but you could.
Yeah, it's old school techniques. I mean, well, it is old school now. One of the first ones I can think of, I remember hearing about. I mean, Star Wars was literally full of it.
I really love that
Death
look.
Star shots and all sorts.
I know I could go on for days about the old ways are better and the new ways are crap, but yeah, there is something really beautiful about these matte paintings, and it's not totally attempting to look real, and it gives this a beautiful painterly quality. It heightens it in a way that I can't really describe.
This has been the problem with the overuse of CGI now, because it's got so cheap. So it's all the studio basically wants an artist to do is throw a couple of 3D objects into Blender, not a Blender, but like, literally throw them in and digitally insert them. And so it's, unless you get a filmmaker that really wants that attention to detail,
Yeah,
it's often just such a rush job that it is cheap because it's made cheap.
I think the matte painting. I mean, I don't know if it would ever make a comeback unless someone was deliberately trying to.
We do
own
have
one.
matte painting still.
There's digital matte
No,
painting.
that's the thing. But it's digital matte painting. It's still the same technique.
Yeah.
But again, you just need an artist that can give them the time to create that thing.
Right.
It's just that, again, I said, now it's just, a lot of effects are very expensive, or at least they take a lot of time, like digital effects and stuff. So it really depends on the filmmaker. So we got two insanely great matte paintings in this minute. There's the city. I did bring up the cityscape. The only thing I want to say about that is I love that it's. As I say, it's still kind of futuristic because you got these futuristic buildings in the background, but we also know that Delta City hasn't been built or even started to be built yet. So this is pre-Delta City, and it's a bit futuristic, but it also looks like garbage. Like, it looks so shitty.
Also, if you look closely at that painting, there isn't a lot of detail, especially on the right side. Your eye is supposed to go straight to the OCP building, and everything around is sort of suggestion.
The cityscape or the OCP building itself?
The OCP building is very detailed, but every building, or a lot of the buildings around it, are just sort of suggestion. There's not a lot of detail.
Well, that's fine, because what you're essentially doing is you're wanting the audience to draw their attention to the OCP. Like, that's...
But why I love the matte painting, I think, is because it reminds me of theatre, and in a way, I guess I don't want movies to be hyper-realistic. I've grown up in a post-9/11 world that seems so fixated on realism and grounded, and, oh, vampires are a blood-borne virus, and superheroes wear black leather, and no, I hate all that shit from my childhood. I like the fantasy. That's why we engage with fiction, because it isn't real.
Yeah, it's kind of this is kind of the weird thing regarding like superheroes, or even things like say RoboCop. Is this whole thing of I hate to keep bringing this up, but the whole idea of we have to explain it. It's like, no, Superman's an alien from Krypton. Done. We don't have to.
What matters is if it's emotionally real, because you could have it's something like Lord of the Rings. I can never connect to because the book especially is not emotionally real, and that it is meant to be just a fable. It's told like a myth, so that doesn't really work for me. I need something that's emotionally real. Yeah,
and this is going back to what we were saying earlier about the idea of stakes and connection to the character is. Like, imagine if at this point, we weren't supporting Murphy, or even if we didn't know about the whole thing of that Dick Jones knows RoboCop's coming. Just that simple one beat actually completely changes the dynamic on this, because if we were just watching RoboCop going to confront Dick Jones, there's tension in there, but knowing that Dick isn't scared adds a lot of weight to it. In fact, I'm just going to quickly go to the script and the book. So there's a bit of different dialogue. So when in the movie, like Dick's, he's getting that phone call and it's like, you've really messed this up, and it's like he's talking Boudica down. That's the context of the thing. It's like, just sit tight, I'll sort this out. In the original script and everything, he sounds a bit more condescending. I'll read it as read. So this is Jones at his desk talking on the phone. Jones, I understand. I know the deal, but you let me down. You just remember that. You owe me. I'm trying not to give any infliction on there, but it's very much a... You're a bad Boudica. Bad Boudica, and I've got to fix this now. Where I think how it's delivered here, the slight change of dialogue, it really just helps feel like these are two guys who are on the same level. And it's like, one's fucked up, but at the same time, he's kind of been doing what he's been told. So, it's you can't blame him. But now we know that Dick knows, and he's not worried. And that becomes even more apparent in the next minute. Yeah.
So, shall we get into gaslighting RoboCop?
I do have some commentary notes, so let me just double check.
You're only delaying the inevitable.
Oh, it's just, there's not really much else I've got, to be honest. It was, apparently Paul was recounting a story where Ed bought a gun for him. It wasn't really interesting enough to, I was supposed to bring it up last minute, but no. No. I have to do this. Due diligence. So, yes. The John the producer actually name checks the matte painter. His name is Rocco Joffrey. So this is the guy who's done all the matte paintings, and kudos to this guy. His work has been amazing throughout. And
it's good stuff. Yeah,
definitely have to bring that up.
And even though it is realistic painting, there's a bit of a style. And that's another thing I love. Like, this is an episode about matte painting love, I guess.
I wrote down the note, a minute of matte.
So, gaslighting RoboCop.
Alex, how do you feel? I feel fine, Dr. Norton.
Minute 72. This minute begins with Sellers saying manned or unmanned and ends with some thugs doing some thug shit or whatever.
I think we can kind of merge 72 and 73 into the one thing here, because it's just kind of leading on. And my only little comment of the rest of the Novak is like, it's finally getting to some real satire. And I'm not sure if it knows that it's doing that.
Yeah. I love Sam Jackson turning to camera saying, has the US Senate become pro-crime?
It's like he sells his piece. They both sides it, but then it's just like, no, flip him off, and it's a pro-crime. It's like, I did genuinely enjoy that for the satire, but part of me is there going, but it feels like that wasn't intentional.
Oh yeah, so for those not watching this RoboCop, and why would you? They're having this debate on television, Sellers and the senator,
Dreyfus,
and Dreyfus, yeah. and basically, so Dreyfus is kind of, what do you call that? Like a hollow projection thing?
Yeah, he's like
He's not actually there.
He's like projected onto the monitor wall that they're all standing in front of. Because it's the future.
So they just, yeah, they disconnect the call, the connection midway through him speaking, and then Sellers, oh, shake your hand, yes, thank you for coming. Anyway, good night, America. Has the government turned into a pro-crime syndicate? I don't know.
Why does the government hate Americans? And by I say Americans, I mean corporate. Okay, so at the end of this minute, we've got the bad cops from the beginning of the movie turning up. And I have to comment on that more than anything because I had to go back to and find the minute where they're first introduced. I use that term loosely because I'm going,
Yes.
hang on, are those the same guys? Because we have not spent any time with them, nor have we spent any time with this Clarence Boddicker ripoff. So it was just like, I feel nothing for any of these characters whatsoever. Like, oh, those guys. Oh, that's right. That was a plot that was abandoned 70
Right,
minutes ago.
I didn't even make the connection between that plot and this one. But what I really want to talk about is the way this crime man does not know how to hold a phone like a human being. Did you notice?
No, I was too busy going backwards and trying to find where these fucking. It's just bad. It's just bad.
So he holds the phone. So when you hold a phone, you're making a phone call. Your phone is resting in the palm of your hand. You know, sort of on the meaty part of your thumb. But this man is holding his phone with his fingertips, so he looks like a giant holding a little brick, and he's trying to.
I'm trying to find it. Oh yeah. Oh god.
There's a problem.
Oh no.
This man has never seen a phone before. I don't understand.
He's a lackey.
This was filmed in
He
2014.
doesn't have a brain. That's why.
Yes.
He's a lackey.
Also, see-through screens are the dumbest idea ever. It was clearly invented by an asexual. No weird, kinky shit on their phones or their screens at any time, so it doesn't matter.
Open about my public content.
Now, what I wanted to say about the debate on I don't know, the O'Reilly report.
Yeah, the movie
whatever
they
hell
actually
they
wanted
were
to
calling it.
tell. You know.
Yes. So, the background is black, navy blue, red, and they've decided to dress their characters in black, navy blue, red, and it drives me nuts. And this is one of those things that on a good movie, there should be a lot of communication between departments, and they should have known that, well, this is what the background looks like, so you can't dress them in these colors. Or vice versa, maybe make the background a little lighter. I don't know what the solution is, one or the other.
Well, this is cinema. Well, okay, so obviously these are all on green screen because given.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily a hard thing for them to change in post. But yeah, oh god.
I would have just made that background a little lighter. I don't know why.
Yeah, it is a visually.
They went for the exact same colors.
It is a visually unpleasant. Yeah, that's why I probably just skipped over most of this. Again, like I'm trying to skip over most of this just to get on with it.
It's fascinating, and I mean, now that I have my own camera, which I keep talking about all the time, I notice just how difficult it is to stage a scene to look cinematic. I technically have all the ingredients, but there's a level of expertise where, like, if you had Robert Rodriguez using my camera or my microphone, I'm sure he could make something quite impressive. But yeah, this is an example of, well, it looks sort of polished, but then it's just lacking this other thing. So that's where they have all the money in the world. They have all the ingredients, but they don't have that one final key ingredient, which is probably cinematography, to bring it all together.
This is a post-production problem more than anything else. Okay, yeah, so
That's a good question. So if you're doing cinematography for a film that has a lot of post-production visual effects, you're involved with every stage of that, I guess.
Yes, or maybe. It really depends. So the thing is, roles in movies can be very nebulous depending on who's in control and what. Like, a very hands-on director might hire a cinematographer, and all the cinematographer is there to do is just to light, frame, and have input for that. They might not be responsible for the color grading or stuff like that. Every project's unique. The thing with this one is that, yeah, they've costumed these people in what they would probably would wear. Like, Sam Jacks is in this checker print thing. He's very conservative with the tie and all that. He's got the America lapel on. He's Bill O'Reilly. What's interesting is that they've basically patterned sellers off of Steve Jobs throughout the entire movie. This entire movie is more of a critique on Steve Jobs than it is a RoboCop movie. But they've got him in the three-piece power suit, dark grey and very, he's basically dressed up like Dick Jones.
Never trust a man in a waistcoat.
I like waistcoats. I just don't wear them.
No, it began with Captain America: Civil War, where Tony Stark was wearing a waistcoat, and they went, never trust a man in a waistcoat.
Yeah, that makes sense. But he's very much like Dick Jones in this. And I think if that, because he's wearing a lot of more casual stuff, and that's one of the things with Steve Jobs. He wore the same outfits every day. He had literally like 20 same polo shirts, 20 the same pants, and the rationale is that it frees up space in his brain so he can concentrate on the more harder decisions. There's a little bit of science behind it, but it's
yes, of course, because as we all know, my wardrobe has taken over my brain, and that is all I can do is clothes now. I'm sorry, I can't do podcasts, I can't write video essays.
You're a costume designer. Of course, it's in your brain.
Yeah, that's true. It's how I express myself. But yeah, I question that because I think if you surround yourself with more creativity and color and opportunity to problem solve at every avenue. I don't know. Maybe that strengthens that muscle. Every morning you wake up and go, I'm going to make some really interesting color combination or whatever it is. And that's already warming you up to be thinking creatively and spontaneously. That's my argument, but I have no science to back it up.
Yeah, it's our brains are weird when it comes to decision making. I'm pretty much a throw on kind of guy. Like, I've
noticed.
I have a set of pants, and like my clothes choice for TAFE is I wear a white shirt and I wear a white t-shirt, and then on top of that a black t-shirt for photography reasons, and also because I'm stuck in a basement at TAFE, so it gets cold, and it's too cold. A jumper is too warm, especially during summer, but double t-shirts is just right. Yeah, I don't particularly care. But what I was going to say is Dreyfus is what's interesting is because they give him the same freaking coloured suit. But he's evil because he's an intellectual, because he wears a bow tie.
Oh, yeah. When did the bow tie come to represent nerds? I don't know when that started.
Well,
I'm going to say the 40s or 50s, but I don't know why.
Well, the thing is, in modern day, it's more become a sign of intellectualism, and America has gone very anti-intellectualism.
Young Sheldon, its marketing, used the bow tie a lot.
I think Tucker Carlson ruined it forever anyway, but he stopped wearing it.
Bill Nye, the science guy.
He looks good in a tie. Bow ties are cool.
Oh, yeah, true, forgot about that one. I think the continental tie should make a resurgence. I wear those sometimes. Most people don't even know what a continental tie is. Check it out.
Because my brain was immediately going to the 90s boot scooting cowboy rope tie, string ties. It's like, fuck, I hate those things.
Oh, the lariat. I think a lariat's really cool, especially if it's jewelry. But continental tie, it's almost just like this little thing that follows the shape of your collar, or it can just be a little V shape. Following the collar line. It's just very smart, very unusual.
My brain immediately went to a bloody preacher's collar, but I'm guessing not that.
Sort of. Some of them can look a little like that. If you wore a white one, it would definitely have that vibe. But I think that's all I have to say for this minute.
Yeah, that was my main thing, because there's really nothing in this bad guy scene. It's just like, oh yes, that's right, there's this background plot. But the more juicy stuff comes after this. So, yeah, I'm all noted out. So where can our lovely viewers find you?
You can find me at triviumdesigns.com, patreon.com/triviumdesigns. Yes, the other podcasts are coming back. It's just every time I go to edit, other things happen.
Yeah.
I don't even have a wife and children. Why are people always needing things from me?
I can't tell you.
And you can find me at Courtney and Ivy on Instagram and Courtney Colson on YouTube.
And you can find me at Fandom Crossing, where I occasionally do shit, and Helios Photos, which I'm back at TAFSO, and I fix all my technical gremlins, so I should hopefully be posting more stuff on there. But you can check us out at Spotify, Google, Apple. I should really write all these down, but I just rely on things. So Apple Podcasts, Google, Spotify, Simplecast. That's it, Simplecast. Where it's actually hosted.
Yes.
We're also on YouTube, so go click like, share, subscribe, all that algorithmic bullshit, rate, review, bloody, bloody, blah, blah, blah. You know that.
Slap our mothers in the face.
I don't know if that feeds the algorithm, but if it does slap your mother in your face... or in her face, maybe it's not slap your mother in your face. I mean, that probably requires your face getting hurt.
That's like a Portal style situation.
No, you're thinking about slapping your mother in the face. Till next time.
The true Robocock is all the dickheads we met along the way.
Nice.